Do Persona fans actually like the Persona games? Now, this may sound like a bit of a stupid question, but I'm being serious. Of course, there's the stereotype that Persona fans don't actually play the games. That is actually a true stereotype for a lot of them. You'll see a lot of them on Twitter talk about the games in a certain way that kind of shows that they actually haven't played the game. It's unfortunately true, and it's not really too acceptable just because of how accessible the games are. You can get Persona 4 and 5 on pretty much any platform. Persona 3, sure, actual versions of Persona 3 are more inaccessible, and unless you have a PlayStation 3 or you're willing to emulate, or a PlayStation 2 even if you can get your hands on a physical copy, yeah, it's a bit trickier to get your hands on. I digress. Almost forgot to mention Persona 1 and 2, which ironically might actually be easier to get your hands on than Persona 3, and actually easier to emulate as well. The reason I pose this question is because if you go on Persona Twitter, there is a stream of non-stop complaining about the Persona games, from pretty much everything, from setting, characters, who you can date, gameplay, whether certain aspects of the game are perhaps problematic in the modern times, which is a debate in of itself. Honestly, I don't think too much in Persona is actually problematic. I think people are generally overreacting. One of the main core themes about Persona is being set in high school, or secondary school if you're in the UK, and being around that age range. A lot of Persona fans on Twitter are clamoring for a Persona game set in college. There's another YouTube video that actually goes into quite a good argument, but I'm gonna break down the argument very quickly and just say what would actually change. Genuinely. You would still go to a place of education, you would still interact with people your age. The social links outside that place would still contain a mixture of young children, teenagers, adults, and younger adults as well. Would it actually change much? Not too much. Funnily enough, outside of Persona 2, Eternal Punishment, the actual game set in that kind of age range, the best, if you want a Persona game that's set in college, that feels like college life, then Persona 3 is right there. I'm going to specifically say PlayStation 2 Persona 3, I'll get into that into a second. Mainly because, think about it, you don't have that much of a parental, well, actually no, you have pretty much no parental figure telling you to do certain things, or prompting you to not stay out too late. You can stay up all you want, you can study all night, you can do things all night, you can suffer the effects of tiredness. That's one of the reasons I say, it should be the PS2 version as opposed to something like Reload, because they completely gutted that mechanic from the remake. Thanks. Persona 3 is pretty much, bar Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, pretty much the closest we're going to get to a college Persona game. If Persona 6 was going to be set in college, then ideally it would follow closely, mechanically, mostly to Persona 3. PS2 Persona 3 that is, and it wouldn't deviate too much from that. The real reason for that is people want the characters to be older, and the reason for that is a very stupid reason. Again, this video that I've mentioned goes over this, which is people getting all morally over playing a video game where you, a teenager, can have relationships with other teenagers. Look, it's a video game. Why do you care so much? You shouldn't care. You just shouldn't. It's just a video game. No one else cared. Why should you? So that's one of the main reasons is, do they actually like the high school setting? Probably not. And there's always an endless stream of people complaining and being all morally about, oh, well, you know, you wear the, you know, you can put outfits on them like the hiker armor. That was a point of contention when Persona 3 Reload came out. And, you know, that's a costume option for all the female party characters, saying, oh, well, you can put them in the hiker armor. Whoa, that's kind of out there. You know, there's hiker armor in Persona 4 as well. And there's, in Persona 5, you know, you could put them in swimsuits. There's no actual hiker armor. You could put them in swimsuits. And, you know, outfits like Anne's and Makoto's are, you know, they're pretty skin tight. And people get very morally over that as well. Start going, ooh, you know, Anne is like so-and-so years old. And they go, well, you know, she shouldn't be wearing something like that. You're misinterpreting her entire character. You know, her persona is Carmen, for fuck's sake. The entire, you know, one of her character traits is that she attracts a male gaze. And part of her social link is learning that, yeah, she's beautiful. She's a white woman in Japan. She's going to stick out like a sore thumb. But instead of being ashamed about it, she should instead, you know, embrace it and not let people drag her down. Something called media literacy, understanding the external media that the game is referencing. One of the things that's brought up pretty much dead last when discussing a Persona game, funnily enough, is the actual gameplay. People will go over everything first. They will go over the aesthetics, the characters, the setting, the themes, the morals, the villain, all this kind of stuff, and they will reach at gameplay last. You know, gameplay in the video game, I feel like that should be one of the first things discussed. And whenever I think about recommending someone Persona, the first thing I take into account is gameplay. I think, you know, how familiar are they with JRPGs? Could they start at, you know, if they're not very familiar, they could possibly start at somewhere like 4 or 5, where they're quite easy, and 4 especially is quite basic with its gameplay. 5 is really easy and really easy to get into as a JRPG. It could be a good launch pad to get them into other JRPGs. If they're very familiar with JRPGs, and I know they have a good tolerance for games that aren't just incredibly bland and easy, I would honestly recommend Persona 3 as a good starting point. Its gameplay is a good challenge and genuinely pushes you, especially on the hard mode, even if you are familiar with JRPGs. But yeah, gameplay is usually the thing discussed dead last. And one thing that always gets brought up is the tactics system. I want to go over a lot of Persona 3's gameplay, PS2 Persona 3's gameplay, in a different video, but in brief they always complain about it. Going more into the idea of the people complaining about the relationships, it's also, you know, you can just not go into the relationship. If you're playing the game and for whatever reason you don't feel comfortable getting into a relationship with any of the characters, you don't have to. You can just not hit the button. I'm going to bring up the stupid tweet that is a terrible point, but you control the buttons you press. You know, unless perhaps you're, you know, doing an all social links run on you know, PS2 Persona 3, which, yeah, it's a stupid mechanic in that game. I will admit that you have to romance, you know, all the girls if you want to do 100% for that game in terms of social links. You know, that bit's annoying. But with all the other games and later versions of Persona 3, you can just say no. You can just not prompt it. It's pretty easy. Another case for, you know, Persona fans not playing the game is ships that make no sense. I mean, who would have thought the shipping community would be the most loud, annoying, and just genuinely unnecessary point of a game's fanbase? I mean, who'd have thought? But yeah, honestly, these people are the most loud and annoying. They will make up ships that make no sense if you've actually played the game. The reason is that these people don't play the game 9 times out of 10. They look up character summaries on YouTube, they read the wiki page for the character, and they just kind of play around with them. They draw like fan art and look at fan art of the characters, especially with certain ships that make no sense. And I'm going to go over a couple of ships that just make no sense. And if you've played the games, you're gonna kind of go, what? That makes no sense. One of them that I've seen a bunch is shipping Naoto and Rize. This makes no sense, genuinely. There's very little interaction between these two characters, like genuinely. They don't really have any chemistry at all. Another one is, well, okay, one that makes sense, that is somewhat supported by stuff in the game, is Naoto and Kanji. But some people like to have their cake and eat it too, apparently, because one of the ones I've seen floating around, I'm not even joking, is Naoto, Kanji, and Rize. Three in one. It's something I've seen. I haven't seen it too often, but some people really defend it, it seems. It's such a strange... It's so weird. It's so stupid and it's so strange. Getting into more ones that don't make a lot of sense. Futaba and Sumire. Again, two characters that barely have any chemistry. I feel one of the reasons people ship them is because they're both redheads. That's it, pretty much. I can't think of too much else. To be fair, there is one point connecting a lot of these that I'm going to go over. I'll bring it up at the end of this discussion. And one of the ones that people argue is supported by the game, but I actually go in the opposite way, and I will actually make the argument that it is not supported by the game, and if you consider aspects of the game, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's the ever-popular Shuake. Genuinely does not make that much sense. It's like, oh look, it's the rivalry between two men. Okay, yeah, there's a bit of a back and forth between them, bit of a cat and mouse between, you know, the guy that's lying to the face of the detective, but he actually knows the secret for a good portion of the time, you know. But it turns out, you know, Joker actually knows Akechi's secret that he probably knows, and, you know, it's a big mind game between the two, you know. It's a game of chess between the two characters, and yeah, Akechi has a social link. You know, in the original game, it's an automatic one that's automatically done. In Royal, it's one you have to go out your way and do, and it is slightly reworked. But yeah, it's just a classic, you know, two men having a rivalry, fight between good and evil. But it's, some people take that a little step further and say they're actually romantically interested. No. No, Akechi is definitely obsessed with Joker, that's for certain, but romantically interested? Absolutely not. And I severely doubt that Joker, or Ren, whatever you want to call him, is romantically interested in Akechi. I'm going to bring up one point here that a lot of people don't consider, which is one of the reasons I consider it a point where a lot of people that support this don't actually play the game. Ren's friends, you know, the rest of the Phantom Thieves, have suffered at the hands of Akechi. You know, you're forgetting that Akechi murdered Haru's father, and there's very strong evidence that Akechi even possibly, or Shido was, well actually no, Shido was involved in the murder of Futaba's mother as well. You know, it's... it makes very little sense for Joker's character being a, you know, a caring guy, like all Persona characters are, he cares about his friends, that he would just turn on them for, you know, romance. I don't think that's in character at all. And a lot of people are like, oh, look at all this art of Shuake. Yeah, it's just like the protagonist and the villain. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that with a lot of other games, a lot of other films, books, TV, whatever. You know, protagonist and villain on the front cover or for promotional art. Yeah, that's really common. That doesn't mean that they're, you know, together, like at all. Anyways, that's my Shuake rant over. I'm gonna quickfire some ships that annoy me. Akihiko and Shinji, no. Yukari and Mitsuru, no. Anne and Shiho, No. Makoto and Haru? No. Now, my counter argument to all these ships is they're just good friends. That's it. Again, C.S. Lewis quote, flash up on screen. They're just good friends. Genuinely. Again, people just haven't played the game and don't understand the friendship. They just look at it as a romantic aspect, which is very stupid and very, just annoying to deal with as a guy that actually plays the games. And I will level with these I will level with these Persona complainers myself and say, yeah, I complain about the games. I complain about the games a bit. It's mainly gameplay, to be fair, even story. I hate when, there's big gaps in the story where nothing really happens. I hate it when, things are removed that were in a previous entry. I hate it when another game just feels like a cheaper copy of another game. In other words, I fucking hate Persona 4. Except from Chie. I quite like Chie. One case I want to highlight of people that haven't played the game completely misrepresenting a character is no clearer than a character like Futaba from Persona 5. A lot of these people portray her as this shy shut-in, which she is, but they also go on and say that she's like really innocent and sweet and a complete little sister character, which, to be fair, yes, she's a shy shut-in and a little sister character. As you would imagine from, someone that is a complete shut-in and spent a lot of the time on the internet, basically unrestricted internet access, she's a fucking pervert. There's a couple of voice lines, and especially one in Persona 5 Strikers, where she just says very perverted things without thinking about it or without considering how other people feel. Again, this is another case of people not actually playing the games. It's just really fucking frustrating dealing with this stuff. I've said this enough this video, but I think you get the point now. I feel a lot of people will agree with what I'm going to say, that there's an absolute epidemic of people talking about games on social media, but not actually playing the games they're talking about. Just to name a few, stuff like Silent Hill, Metal Gear, but I feel most of all, it's most prominent with Persona, honestly. That's where you seem to get the most of it. The most tourism, I would say, of these fans that don't actually play the game, and they will sometimes admit that they don't play the game because they don't want to, because they're outdated or they're problematic or something. I feel like accessibility isn't too much of an issue because, well, Persona 4 and 5 are on everything. I think I already said that in this video, but yeah, it's absolutely just stupid, and I just hate to see it, You're talking about a video game. Play the actual video game before you start talking about it. What I've noticed is that a lot of these people complaining about Persona have a lot of things in common. A lot of things is that they're on that side of Twitter, the more prog side. They just seem to complain about fucking everything. And I'm not saying the other side of Twitter doesn't complain. They do complain. But it seems to be a lot less. They keep going, Persona's problematic because, oh well, look, Persona 4 is kind of homophobic for some of the dialogue around kanji, and it's kind of transphobic around the dialogue around Naoto. And Persona 3 has this transphobic line, and Persona 5 has the entire problematic thing with, like the gay couple that keep appearing, I think they appeared twice actually, but yeah. And it's like, just at what point do you consider is this game for me? There's a bunch of other stuff as well. Stuff like the aforementioned high-cut armor. Again, one of the biggest modders of Persona, like, I'm pretty sure he owns the modding Discord for Persona, complained about the high-cut armor. And there's other stuff about, like, again, Anne's outfit, Makoto's outfit, for like their Phantom Thief stuff, and it's like, at what point do you complain about almost every facet about a game, from its setting to its characters to its themes to its costume choice to features in it? Do you consider, why do I even bother playing this game? And it's because for the most part they don't actually play the game. So to answer your question, do Persona fans actually like the Persona games? A good portion of them don't. Well, that's that discussion over. I'm gonna go and apologize for my upload schedule. Honestly, it's gonna be like this my entire YouTube, gig for however long I want to do this. It's just gonna be a bit like sporadic. Honestly, it's whenever I feel like I have time to, or something I want to talk about and I have enough time to put that into a video, or have the want to put that into a video. Just very busy with all kinds of stuff at the moment in my life, but it's gonna be random, and also content I'm gonna do is gonna be random as well. I'm sorry about that, but it just is. But yeah, I felt like I could make this video pretty quickly because it's just a voiceover, some gameplay with some images popping up on screen. I mean, so was my last video, but that at least had a little bit more editing done into it, a little bit more research. But this was just I needed to get this off my chest, and I felt like people would sit down and watch this. One thing I also want to add is I've changed my Audacity editing, of my audio. So if it sounds better and worse, please let me know in the comments below. And to wrap up, just like, subscribe, and because my upload schedule is so inconsistent, I'm a smaller channel as well, just feel free to hit the notification bell so you get it pinged when I upload a new video. Hopefully you see it. And yeah, hope to see you in the next video.
You mean to practice for a role? Club. You did say you wish to play a detective someday. That's amazing, Kurane. You truly are a thespian.
More like lesbian.
Shut up!
There's